A young girl escapes her rich father's luxurious life to find peace in a small town. 15 years later, a shocking reunion reveals dark secrets that could turn her world upside down. What hidden truths lie beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? In the bustling city of Chicago, the sound of sirens mixed with the chatter of pedestrians created a vibrant backdrop for Emily Parker's daily routine. At 32, Emily was a dedicated nurse in the oncology department of St. James Clinic, where she worked tirelessly alongside her lively friend Claire. Known for her kind heart and cheerful spirit, Emily took pride in brightening her patients' days. She wore colorful scrubs adorned with playful patterns, believing they brought a sense of comfort to those dealing with serious health issues. One brisk morning, as Emily prepared for her shift, she noticed the bustling waiting area of the clinic. Patients sat nervously, some scrolling through their phones, others quietly contemplating their diagnoses. Emily smiled at the familiar faces, but one patient caught her eye. Henry Caldwell, a wealthy yet lonely elderly man, sat in the corner, his demeanor a mix of warmth and sadness. Despite his access to high-end healthcare, Henry visited the clinic regularly, often avoiding more upscale facilities. "Good morning, Mr. Caldwell." Emily greeted him as she approached, her smile genuine. "How are you feeling today?" "Much better, thank you, Emily. It's always nice to see a friendly face," Henry replied, his voice soft but laced with an underlying loneliness. Emily had known Henry for a while. He was charming, with a quick wit that often masked the deep sadness he carried. As she checked his chart, she felt a pang of sympathy. Henry had a strained relationship with his daughter, Rachel, who had distanced herself from their affluent lifestyle to live in a small rural town with her husband, Tom. "Any plans for the day?" she asked, hoping to engage him in conversation. "Just the usual," he said with a sigh, leaning back in his chair, "checking up on some investments. But honestly, I find myself wishing I could see Rachel more often. It's been far too long." Emily's heart sank. She had heard snippets of Henry's story from Dr. Stewart, the chief physician at the clinic. The man was not just a patient. He was a father yearning for reconciliation with a daughter who had chosen a different path in life. "Maybe you could reach out to her," Emily suggested gently. "It's never too late to reconnect." Henry chuckled softly, but it was tinged with regret. "Oh, Emily, I've tried. My controlling nature pushed her away. I don't know how to make it right." As their conversation continued, Emily's mind began to race. She recalled her own childhood, having lost her parents at a young age. That experience taught her the value of family and the importance of seizing every opportunity to reconnect with loved ones. Later that day, as she was wrapping up her shift, Emily overheard Dr. Stewart and Henry discussing a rather concerning plan. Henry's voice was low, filled with a sense of desperation. "I think I'll tell her I'm gravely ill," he said. "If I could just get her to come back, to see me one last time. Maybe it would open the door for us to talk." Dr. Stewart, who had a close friendship with Henry, responded, "But Henry, that's not a solid foundation for rebuilding a relationship. What if she finds out the truth? It could shatter any chance you have left." Emily felt a rush of urgency at the thought of Henry using deceit to draw Rachel back into his life. It was clear that he was lost in his sorrow. Stepping closer, she interrupted the conversation. "Mr. Caldwell, I couldn't help but overhear. There might be another way." Henry turned to her, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "What do you mean, Emily? Instead of pretending to be sick, why not move to Rachel's town? You could start fresh and reconnect with her naturally, as a neighbor. You could even take on a new identity if that helps ease the transition." Henry pondered her suggestion, his brow furrowing in thought. "You mean, become someone else entirely?" "Not entirely," Emily clarified. "But you could be Uncle Martin, a kind neighbor who looks out for her and her family. It could allow you to show her that you've changed, without the weight of your past hanging over you." The idea hung in the air, and for a moment, Henry's eyes sparkled with a glimmer of hope. "That could work," he finally said, his voice filled with determination. "I could really use a chance to show her I'm different." As they discussed the logistics, Emily felt a wave of excitement wash over her. Perhaps this was the opportunity Henry needed to mend the relationship he had lost. But with that excitement came the realization of the challenges ahead. Later that evening, after finishing her shift and tucking her 6-year-old son, Jake, into bed, Emily lay awake, contemplating the change that lay ahead for Henry. Would Rachel accept this new version of her father? Could they truly find a way to heal their relationship? The following morning, with a sense of purpose, Emily reached out to Henry. They spent hours mapping out the details of the plan. She could accompany him to Rachel's town, helping him settle in and integrate into the community. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Emily asked, watching as Henry began to pack some belongings. "I've spent too long in isolation. It's time to embrace a new chapter," he replied, his voice steady. With a nod of determination, Emily knew this journey was just beginning. As they prepared for their move, she felt the weight of her own past and the hope for the future intertwining. This venture held the promise of healing not just for Henry, but perhaps for herself as well. As they drove away from the bustling city, Emily cast a final glance in the rearview mirror. Chicago faded into the distance, but the journey toward reconciliation loomed ahead. Little did they know, the road would be filled with surprises and challenges that would test their resolve. But they were ready to face whatever came next together. And in the quiet moments, as Henry gazed out at the passing scenery, he could almost feel the stirrings of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the chance for a new beginning was on the horizon. The drive from Chicago to the small town of Maplewood felt like a journey into a new life for both Henry and Emily. As the city skyline dwindled into the horizon, the vast fields and quaint houses began to emerge, painting a picture of simplicity and calm. Emily felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as she glanced at Henry, who sat quietly beside her, lost in thought. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, breaking the silence. Henry took a deep breath, his fingers tapping nervously on his knees. "I've never done anything like this before," he admitted. "But it feels like a chance I can't pass up." Arriving in Maplewood, the town exuded a charm that felt foreign to Henry, who had spent years in the fast-paced environment of the city. They pulled up to a modest house with a welcoming front porch. "This will be our new home," Emily said, a smile spreading across her face. The house had seen better days, with peeling paint and overgrown bushes, but it held the promise of transformation. As they unloaded the car, Jake bounded out, his small feet racing towards the garden. "Can I go explore, Mom?" he asked eagerly, his eyes bright with curiosity. "Sure, but stay close," Emily called after him. Watching her son, she felt a warmth in her heart, hoping that this move would not only help Henry but also enrich Jake's life. Inside the house, Henry wandered from room to room, absorbing the newness of his surroundings. "I never thought I'd find myself in a place like this," he mused, touching the walls. "It feels different. Different in a good way, I hope," Emily replied, following him with a box of kitchen supplies. "This is a fresh start for both of us." Over the next few days, they settled into their routines. Emily found a job as the school nurse at the local elementary school, while Henry embraced his new role as Uncle Martin, spending time getting to know the neighborhood and helping out where he could. He would lend a hand to Tom, Rachel's husband, with minor repairs around the house. One afternoon, as Henry worked on a project in the backyard, he spotted Rachel walking home with Sam and Lily. His heart raced at the sight of his daughter, her hair catching the sunlight, her smile bright as she chatted with her children. "Here goes nothing," he muttered to himself, stepping out from behind a bush. "Hey there, you must be the new neighbors," Rachel called out, a friendly smile spreading across her face as she approached with the kids. "Yes, I'm Uncle Martin, and this is my nephew, Jake," Henry replied, gesturing to the boy who was curiously observing from behind him. "Nice to meet you," Rachel said, bending down to Jake's level. "What do you think of Maplewood so far?" "It's awesome. I found a tree to climb," Jake exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. Rachel laughed, her eyes twinkling with warmth. "That's great. Just make sure you're careful. We wouldn't want you getting hurt." As they chatted, Henry watched Rachel interact with her children, her laughter ringing in his ears like a long-forgotten melody. He felt a rush of emotions, pride, longing, and an overwhelming desire to connect. Over the next few weeks, Henry began to establish a routine that revolved around his new life in Maplewood. He became a familiar sight at the local parks, often seen playing with Jake and the Caldwell children. They would ride bikes, have picnics, and engage in countless adventures, allowing Henry to slowly break down the barriers he had built around himself. But as much as he enjoyed his time with Rachel's family, the weight of his past still loomed over him. He often found himself lost in thoughts of how to approach Rachel about their relationship. He wanted to tell her who he really was and express his deep regrets, but fear held him back. One evening, after a day filled with laughter and play, Emily and Henry sat on the porch, the sun dipping below the horizon. The sky turned shades of orange and pink, painting a beautiful backdrop for their conversation. "Emily, how do you think I should tell Rachel the truth?" Henry asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've grown to care about her children, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm deceiving her." "You need to be honest, Henry," Emily replied softly. "You can't build a relationship on a lie, even if it's born from fear. She deserves to know the truth." Henry nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "You're right, but what if she hates me for what I've done?" "She won't know unless you give her the chance to hear your side," Emily encouraged. "It's about time for you to step out of the shadows and into the light. You deserve to find peace." The conversation lingered in the air as they continued to watch the sunset, both knowing that a pivotal moment was approaching. With a mix of anticipation and dread, Henry realized he would soon have to confront the past he had tried to escape. That night, as they prepared for bed, Henry lay awake, contemplating his next steps. The walls of the modest house surrounded him, but within those walls lay the promise of hope, reconciliation, and a chance for a new beginning. All he needed was the courage to embrace it. The days turned into weeks as Henry settled into his new life in Maplewood. Each moment spent with Rachel's children deepened his understanding of what he had lost and what he yearned to regain. As he watched Jake play with Sam and Lily, laughter echoing through the air, he felt a flicker of hope. But with every smile came the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on him. Emily had been a constant source of support, encouraging him to reveal his identity to Rachel. Yet, despite the growing bond he felt with her family, Henry still hesitated. Would Rachel see him as the man he had become, or would she only remember the father who had driven her away? One crisp Saturday morning, Henry found himself pacing the kitchen, glancing out the window at the bright blue sky. Today was the day he had resolved to tell Rachel the truth. He needed to take that step. The thought made his heart race, his palms sweaty with nerves. "Hey, Uncle Martin," Jake called, running into the kitchen. "Can we go to the park today? Sam and Lily are going, too." Henry looked down at his young companion, the innocent excitement in Jake's eyes a reminder of the joy he had longed to experience with Rachel. "Of course, buddy. Let's just grab a quick breakfast first." As they enjoyed a simple meal together, Henry's mind wandered to the inevitable conversation he would soon have with Rachel. He needed to find the right moment, a time when they could speak openly. The park was a bustling place, filled with laughter and energy, but it also felt like a safe space where he could finally share his heart. Later that day, the three children bounded ahead, their laughter echoing through the park as they raced toward the swings. Henry lagged behind, watching them with a mixture of joy and trepidation. Rachel was sitting on a bench nearby, chatting with a few other parents. She looked relaxed, her laughter genuine, and for a brief moment, he hesitated again. "Uncle Martin, look at me," Jake shouted as he soared high on the swings. The sight made Henry smile, but the reality of his deception tugged at him. Gathering his courage, Henry approached Rachel, his heart pounding. "Rachel, can I talk to you for a moment?" She looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to curiosity. "Sure. What's up? Can we step aside?" It's important," he said, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his chest. "Of course," Rachel replied, glancing at the kids before following him a short distance away. As they moved to a quieter spot, Henry felt a rush of nerves and determination. "Rachel, I need to be honest with you," he began, searching for the right words. "There's something you don't know about me." Rachel's expression shifted. A mix of concern and confusion etched on her face. "What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath, he continued, "I'm not just your neighbor, Uncle Martin. My real name is Henry Caldwell, and I'm your father." Rachel's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? No, it can't be." Henry rushed to explain, "I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I've changed, and I've come here to try to make things right." She shook her head, stepping back as if his words physically pushed her away. "How could you just show up here after all this time? After everything you put me through?" "I was wrong, Rachel. I've spent years regretting how I treated you," Henry pleaded. "I want to be a part of your life again, to know my grandchildren. I want to understand and help heal the wounds I caused." The air between them thickened with tension. Rachel's expression hardened as she processed his confession, her eyes welling with tears. "You think it's that simple? Just because you say you've changed?" Henry felt the weight of his past crashing down around him, but he pushed through. "No, it's not simple, and I don't expect forgiveness right away. But I'm here, ready to listen and learn." Rachel took a step back, her heart racing. "I need time," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't just forget everything that happened." Henry nodded, understanding the gravity of her feelings. "I'll give you all the time you need. Just know that I'm here, and I'm ready to be the father you deserve." As Rachel walked away, Henry felt the sting of her rejection, but he also felt a sense of relief. The truth was finally out, and now it was up to Rachel to decide how to proceed. With the sun shining brightly overhead, he knew the path to healing had just begun, but it would be a long and winding road filled with uncertainty. The days following Henry's confession were filled with a heavy silence. He had expected a range of emotions from Rachel, but the hurt and confusion in her eyes haunted him. He knew he had taken a leap of faith, but the weight of her absence felt overwhelming. Henry spent his days helping Emily with her school nurse duties and keeping Jake entertained, yet the laughter of the children was often overshadowed by the uncertainty of his relationship with Rachel. Every time he saw her at the park or in town, he felt a mix of hope and despair. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap he had created, but he respected her need for space. One afternoon, as the leaves turned golden and the air crisped with autumn, Emily found Henry sitting alone on the porch, lost in thought. "You've been quiet lately," she said, taking a seat beside him. "How are you holding up?" Henry sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "It's harder than I thought. I want to fix things with Rachel, but I don't know how to reach her. Every time I see her, I feel this wall between us." Emily nodded, understanding the pain he felt. "It's going to take time, Henry. You've made a big move, and change doesn't happen overnight. She'll need to process everything." Just then, Jake burst out of the house, his face alight with excitement. "Uncle Martin, can we go to the park? Sam and Lily are waiting for us." "Sure, let's go," Henry replied, his spirits lifting at the thought of spending time with the kids. At the park, the laughter of the children filled the air, and for a moment, Henry was able to push his worries aside. As they played, he caught sight of Rachel sitting on a bench, watching her children with a mix of love and concern etched on her face. Taking a deep breath, Henry approached her. "Rachel," he said softly, his heart racing. "Can we talk?" She looked up, surprised, but nodded slowly. "Okay." Finding a quiet spot away from the playful chaos, Henry searched for the right words. "I know you need time, and I respect that. But I want you to know that I'm committed to being here for you and your family, whatever that looks like." Rachel's expression softened slightly, but her guard was still up. "You have to understand, I can't just forget the past. It hurts too much." "I know," he replied, his voice steady. "I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness. I just want the chance to prove that I can be different now. I've spent years regretting my mistakes, and I want to make it right." Rachel studied him, her eyes searching for sincerity. "What if I don't want to have a relationship with you?" Henry swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. I'll respect that, but I hope, over time, you'll see that I genuinely want to change. Just then, Jake ran up to them, breathless and eager. Mom, can we have a picnic? Uncle Martin can help. Henry looked at Rachel, hoping to break the tension. I can set it up while you relax. It might be nice to enjoy the day together, even if it's just for the kids. Rachel hesitated but then nodded. Okay, a picnic sounds nice. As Henry prepared the picnic, he felt a sense of purpose. They spread out a blanket and filled it with sandwiches and snacks, laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. For the first time in a while, Henry felt a sense of belonging. During the picnic, Rachel joined in the fun, and gradually, the wall between them began to show signs of cracking. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the park, Henry turned to her. Thank you for giving me this chance, he said. Rachel smiled faintly. Let's take it one step at a time. With that, they began to rebuild their relationship, one picnic at a time. The journey would be long, but both Henry and Rachel were willing to put in the effort. The road to reconciliation was still uncertain, but the hope for healing had taken root. As they packed up, Henry looked at Emily, who stood a few feet away, watching the scene unfold with a smile. She had been the catalyst for this journey, and he felt a deep gratitude for her unwavering support. In that moment, Henry realized that true love indeed required humility and sacrifice. It was about facing the past and choosing to move forward, hand in hand with family, towards a brighter future.